Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about strange, weird, and odd flavored whiskeys, moonshines, vodkas, etc. Let's get right to it. To start off, a couple of months ago, the wife and I did celebrate 14 years of unholy matrimony. I'm just kidding. 20 years together, which really blows my mind. But yeah. Now, obviously, she has not been on the channel much, if at all, this year. She's been super busy, but I assure you she's still around. She's just never home. But we did take some time off to celebrate and took a trip to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge here in Tennessee, which we've been going to since our honeymoon. Now, I'll be honest, it's not the town or towns that we remember. Ever since a ton of distilleries kind of opened up in that area, it started to draw a different kind of crowd. We'll just say that. But being the hypocrites that we are, we did go with the sole purpose of stocking up on some booze that we may not be able to get here in town. But while we were there, I began to realize that I'm starting to gravitate towards like the weird and odd flavors because everybody has their blackberries and their apple pies and all that kind of stuff, but I'm looking for what makes this distillery different from the others. So I thought it'd be fun to go over some of the weird and odd flavors that we've come across over 14 years of going to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. Starting off with probably one of the most well-known moonshine distilleries, Old Smoky, if I'm not mistaken, is the original first moonshine distillery that opened up in downtown Gatlinburg. Matter of fact, I remember the wife and I were going there for a couple of years, and one year we were just walking down the Gatlinburg Strip. There was a sign that pointed down a dark alley that said free moonshine tasting. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have went down that alley, but we were young and stupid. At the time, they only had 3 flavors to choose from, which was the White Lightning, the original corn whiskey, which I do prefer over the White Lightning, and the Moonshine Cherries. They also had a homemade apple pie recipe, which is, for the most part, what I make to this day. It's kind of crazy because the wife and I used to absolutely love them, but now we're not the biggest fan of their moonshine flavors. Like I said, I love the original corn whiskey, but something about their moonshine flavors just have this taste that I'm not the biggest fan of. I assume it's the moonshine, but again, it's weird because I like their moonshine. But they also have whiskeys, and again, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the whiskeys. I really did want to try cookie dough. I'm a huge fan of cookie dough ice cream. This one just seems like it's probably awful, but I want to try it before I buy it. So, as you can see, I broke down and bought a bottle. Overall, it's not bad. It's not quite what I was expecting. It kind of reminds me a bit more of the s'mores that I'm about to talk about. But, yeah, I don't know if I'd ever buy a big bottle again. I know they have smaller bottles of the whiskeys, but I haven't seen the cookie dough. Obviously, that's why I bought the big one. But, I'd buy a smaller one, but I'm not sure if I'd ever buy a bigger one again. But I wouldn't say it wasn't worth the $20. It was interesting. It's not bad, like I said, but not my cup of tea per se, but hey, I've had worse. But there are 2 whiskeys that we really do like. And the first up is Salty Watermelon. Now, I'll be honest, I've never really put salt on a watermelon, but I'm not typically the biggest fan of watermelon flavored things. But this one is just, it's a good, subtle watermelon flavor. I can't really describe it, but it's a good sipping whiskey. It's just smooth, easy to drink, and I don't know, maybe it does taste like salty watermelon. I don't know. Next up is our absolute favorite, and that is the Mango Habanero whiskey. Now, if you're not the biggest fan of hot things, I would say still give this a try. It's not what you think it would be. There is a bit of heat, but it's not a lingering heat. It's just kind of like one and done. You know, you're not going to be dying on the floor 30 minutes later or anything like that. It's just so unique. I'm not the biggest fan of mango, so I really can't describe the mango flavor. I'm not even sure if I taste it. It's really good. This is one of our go-to shots. I wouldn't say this is a good sipping whiskey, but I have heard people say they've cooked chicken with it, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't cook chicken or any kind of food with booze. Seems like a waste of booze. If you've seen the show Moonshiners or whatever it was called, you may be familiar with Sugarlands. Now, the funny thing about Sugarlands is I'm not the biggest fan of their plain moonshine, but they really have some good flavors. I do gotta point out, we did come on with root beer. Not really a unique flavor, but it's like the most gourmet root beer I've ever had in my life. Now, you can mix it with root beer, but honestly, it's not even worth it. Just drink it straight. It's so freaking good. And their apple pie is probably one of the best you can buy off the shelf. There's just something unique about it. I know they make it with green apples, which I'm not the biggest fan of green apples, but somehow it's just so unique, so much better than anything else, maybe aside from the kind that I make at home, but definitely recommend checking it out. And speaking of weird flavors, I did not bring this one home, but I gotta mention it. They have an Eggo. This is a cream liqueur, and yes, it tastes like if someone took an Eggo, some butter, and some syrup, put it into a blender. It's the weirdest thing. You know, to each his own. I'm not gonna say it was bad, but definitely not something I wanted to bring home. It was an experience. We'll just say that. I also gotta highlight the Strawberry Dream. I'm not the biggest fan of cream liqueurs, but this one tastes like Strawberry Quick. If you're feeling nostalgic, but also have to deal with adult problems, here you go. But my absolute favorite from Sugarlands, I've talked about this before, but I gotta highlight the peanut butter and jelly. Typically, I'm not the biggest fan of grape flavored things. I don't understand why so many people can't get a simple flavor like grape to taste good, but this one, they nailed it. It's a very, very good grape taste on the front, but on the back, you'll get a little bit of peanut butter. It sounds weird, but it's really good. Now, this is one that I no doubt sip on straight by itself. I can't imagine mixing it with anything. I'm not even sure what would be good, but it's great by itself. I know it sounds weird, but I highly recommend checking it out. You'll never find anything else like it. Dumpling Creek, or Old Tennessee as it's now called, I believe. This is an honorable mention because I didn't actually bring anything home from them. Well, I did, but nothing unique and nothing worth talking about, but they're the ones who had a s'mores flavored moonshine. Now, this is one that I actually sent to Back in the Day Gamer a long time ago when we did a collab, and I had to mention it. They didn't have it this time around, and I was really upset about it, but yeah, it tastes like a s'mores. Like, you get a little bit of like this chocolate flavor, not like overly sweet or anything like that, a little bit of marshmallow, but graham cracker on the back end of it. It was so good, I had to send one to him, and as far as I know, he liked it. I'm sure he'll say something in the comments. Moving on to Tennessee Legend. This is probably the first moonshine distillery you'll come across driving into Pigeon Forge. I think they're actually technically in Surveyorville. I know that doesn't mean jack shit to any of y'all, but I do believe they're the first ones you'll hit. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan, and they have a ton of flavors, but they do have one of our favorite flavors. But I do gotta bring up, since we just talked about the peanut butter and jelly, they do have a blackberry, which tastes like Robitussin, like every other blackberry that you'll come across, but they also have a peanut butter cup. Now, I'm not gonna lie, separate, they're not very good, but one of the years we were there, they actually made us a shot, blending those two, and that was actually really good. It was actually surprisingly good that the wife and I bought both bottles, brought them home, and that's how we drank both of them. Was a very unique flavored shot. Now, nowhere near as good as the peanut butter and jelly, but from Sugarlands, just wanted to point it out. But our favorite, and I guess only flavor we really like from them, we got to talk about Fiery Mango Margarita. Now, you will see a trend here. We do kind of like these spicy moonshines. There's something unique about them, and they really shouldn't be that good. It's a bit more on the sweeter side, in my opinion, but like the other spicy ones, this is not one we sip on. It is a go-to shot. It's different, but worth checking out. Now we're really getting into the weird stuff. So Tennessee Shine Co., in my opinion, is not as good as I feel like they think they are. They were one that we kind of found off the beaten path many years ago, and we thought was unique about them was they had tiny little jars. I really appreciate this. I really wish more distilleries would have these tiny jars, but whatever. But now for some reason there's like 4 different distilleries and they all have the exact same stuff. They're not that good. I don't know why there's so many of them. But a couple of honorable mentions. This is another one we sent Back in the Day Gamer. The Cotton Candy. Now this is not one that I would tend to sip on. Again, it would be more of a shot. But yeah, it kind of tastes like cotton candy. Not in a bad way. I can't really describe it any way else. Not really a weird flavor, but one I did want to mention is the Big Orange Dreamsicle. I'm a big fan of the orange cream popsicles, or whatever you want to call them, and that's what this tastes like. It is a cream liqueur, which the wife and I aren't the biggest fans of because they're just kind of too sweet, which is why I appreciate the fact that they have a tiny jar. But the ultimate weirdest flavor. Yes, and if you happen to watch an unboxing video, you may be familiar with some jalapeno cornbread moonshine. Now you're probably thinking, God, that sounds awful. You know what? I thought the same thing, but when I saw it as an option for me to try, I couldn't resist. And it's fantastic. It's not really a hot flavored jalapeno, it's just a good jalapeno flavor on the front and this sweet cornbread flavor on the back. Now the weird thing about this is one that I won't necessarily sip on or even take a shot of. It's one that I just occasionally look at and just open up, take a quick sip. It's all I need. It's just weird, and again, it's an experience. It's unlike anything you'll try. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing in the world, but it's something everybody has to try at least once in their life. There. The thing about Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge is pretty much everything you want to do is on the same road. You kind of can't get lost, which is what I like about it. But you'd be amazed what you might find off the beaten path. Now, the wife and I were staying at a cabin several years ago, and we came across this distillery, and I couldn't remember anything about it, but I'm thankful that we were able to find it because this is probably one of my favorite drinks that we brought home, and that is ginger-flavored vodka. Now, let me make it clear, I'm not the biggest fan of vodka. I'm also not the biggest fan of ginger, but something about this is so good. So good, in fact, that this is one I'll drink straight. Now, there's not any other vodka that I will drink straight, but this one is just good. Now, you could mix it with ginger ale, but I kind of feel like that ruins the experience in my opinion because, again, it's just really good by itself. Ginger ale is probably the best way I could describe it, but even ginger ale to me might be too much ginger. It's not overly ginger, it's not overly vodka. It's like the perfect blend of the two, and yeah. Stepping away from Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge for a second, if you're coming from Nashville, you will pass through Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where you'll find Knox Whiskey Works. Now, the wife and I don't remember much about some of their other flavors. We were hoping to do a sample while we were there, but they weren't doing samples that day, but we had to pick up basically what we went there for, which is Dealsgate Dragontail Honey Habanero Flavored Whiskey. My God, this is fantastic. I don't even know how to describe this one. It's just delicious. Again, it's like the other ones. There's a little bit of heat, but it's not overwhelming. But the honey just adds this sweetness. There's nothing else like this out there. This is one we do take shots of, but I could honestly see myself sipping on this one. I'm not sure, but maybe one day we'll find out. The last time the wife and I went to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, I believe was in 2020. Junction 35 apparently opened up in 2019, and the last time we were there, didn't even know it existed, and it bums me out. But our hotel just happened to be right next to it, so to speak, and wow, I'm glad we found it. Now, like I said, most of the stuff there is to do in Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge is on the same road. Junction 35 just happens to be slightly off the main road, but if you didn't know it was there, you're probably not going to find it. But anyway, they had a ton of flavors, and we didn't even get to try anywhere near as much as we wanted. So, matter of fact, we're already planning on the next time we go there, kind of planning our day around what sample rotation they have going on that day, because there's several flavors we want to try. There was a jalapeno one that I was very curious about, but so far, everything we've had, we've really enjoyed. So, this one's not really unique, but I feel like I need to highlight it. Bomb Pop. It tastes like a bomb pop. So again, if you're feeling nostalgic, but dealing with the stress of bills and other adult things, hey, there's worse things you could do, I guess. Now, this flavor is pretty much the reason why I wanted to make this video, along with the jalapeno cornbread. But yeah, the wife and I tried this and spent the entire weekend talking about it. We were like, we have to go back and get this. We're not leaving this town until we have a bottle of this. We should have bought two, to be honest. But it's another vodka. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of vodka. But it's called Bam Bam. Now, why is it called Bam Bam? Because it tastes like fucking Fruity Pebbles. I'm not joking. It tastes just like Fruity Pebbles. Now you might think that's weird, but for some reason it's good. Now the funny thing is, the first time the wife and I went there, we were already a couple of sheets to the wind, so to speak. And, you know, the bartender's doing his whole spiel while we're doing the sampling and all that kind of stuff, but I'm like mesmerized by all the flavors that they have that I missed what he was saying about this. So I took the shot having no idea what it was and was like, it tastes like fucking Fruity Pebbles. Now the thing about this one, this is a great occasional shot. I want to make it very clear, the wife and I, we're not drunks. We don't drink every night. But when we do drink, this is one that we don't always want. But damn it, when we want it, we fucking want it. It's just so different. It's so unique. It's not one I can imagine sipping on, but yeah, and honestly, I think they should do more like this. They should do like a Lucky Charms, or like around Halloween, do like Frankenberry and Booberry and all that kind of stuff. That'd be fantastic. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comments below if you've had any of these or any that you recommend. I'm always on the lookout for weird and strange things. So thanks again for watching, guys. You know what to do: like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you again next time.